Brock isn't him, Larry. You'll see when he has to go up against a real defense. Green Bay has a stacked secondary. Rasul Douglas, Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, also Hall of Fame quarterback. Well, we shall see.
Well, we'll see. That's why this week means a lot, because the Niners could have the bye, or they could have the Green Bay Packers. And I agree. Green Bay is dangerous right now, and Watson's super fast, and Dobbs is healthy, and Rodgers the Hall of Famer, and you're right. They got a killer secondary. Savage is big time, and you just saw the other guys shut down. Alexander just shut off the water for Justin Jefferson. So it's gonna be a challenge.
Mac Daddy says, "I'll do what Bill Walsh said years ago and draft a quarterback every single year till we find one. That way, everyone is on the bubble to produce." Yeah, I like it. I think they should draft another quarterback this year. And I think if they do draft another quarterback, that might sort of indicate their plans for Trey.
I'll tell you what I would do if I'm John Lynch. The guy, whoever was the guy who decided that Brock was a good prospect, he gets a pick. He gets a 7th round pick. They got like 3 of them, right? Yeah. You got a 7th round pick. Who's your 7th round quarterback? Go for it. Whoever you want, that's who we're taking.
Patek says Trey got drafted in the worst situation, not Fields. Yeah, different ends of the spectrum. Fields got drafted by a bad team. Lance's team was too good. Too good for him. They weren't willing to trust the process. They weren't willing to do a ramp-up quarterback. They weren't. Other teams would be.
I mean, before we say they weren't, I don't think we are either. I don't think the fan base is. I don't think the locker room is. I don't think this team's ready to win 2 years ago, and they haven't gotten it done, and they're feeling that frustration, and they can't win a Super Bowl fast enough.
Right.
And Trey needs a 20 to 25 game ramp up period where it doesn't matter, necessarily. And it's like that's just not going to happen here right now.
Not feasible. Yeah. Niners Faithful said, if BP wins a Super Bowl and someone offers a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd for Trey, would you?
Of course.
A 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, huh? Yeah. Kyle Green says, I'm coming to SF from South Carolina to watch my first home game. Do you have any suggestions of good places to eat? Love the show. You're going to San Francisco? Nice.
Yeah, what kind of food do you want? You name it.
Well,
I got all kinds of restaurant places.
It's crab season, so you might do yourself a favor and have some Dungeness crab in San Francisco. You could go Italian and go to any number of places in North Beach. Pick a place in North Beach, get Chipino. They'll have it. Or you could go to Chinatown. I personally like RNG Lounge and get the salt and pepper crab. Either way, you're going to have a great time. Where's your go-to crab place?
I've gone to a bunch of crab feeds, like for out here in the burbs for like teams and that kind of thing. But I don't think I've had crab in a restaurant in the city. I probably should. That's probably on my bucket list now.
Kyle, take Larry with you. You guys got to go together. David says, I just watched a bunch of film of Purdy and I see why he was the last pick in the draft. He had a funky delivery and a very slow fastball. Wow, has he improved in a short time? Keep Trey and teach him.
There was a great article on Brock, how leading into the draft, he added like 5 miles an hour to his passes by working with this group. I think it was in Arizona, on just all of his mechanics of his throw, from his elbow placement to his step to his release. And he generated 5 more miles per hour on his throws than he did when he was at Iowa State. I had the same takeaway. When I was at Iowa State, I thought, man, there was too many throws that you looked at and said, that's not NFL. That's not NFL velocity. But he improved his velocity. He understood the need for it. All you need to know about Brock is that he's smart as hell, and he is competitive as anybody there is. And that right there is, you're well ahead of the game if you're super smart and you're insanely competitive. He's got the smart, tough, competitive gene.
Yeah. And he has all this experience that most young quarterbacks don't have. And it makes him kind of unique. Juwan Jennings reminds me of Anquan Boldin. I see what you mean, E.T. Absolutely. I just think he's probably a better route runner than Boldin. Boldin, to me, would just run into people. He was like 230 pounds, and people would just bounce off of him. And he would just post up in the middle of the field and catch passes. I've never seen anyone do it like Boldin. He was great.
Boldin was
Great
great.
player.
He beat the Niners in the Super Bowl in New Orleans.
I would say he's a Hall of Fame player for that. He was the number one receiver on a Super Bowl team that won with offense that year. Anquan, to me, was Hall of Famer. He probably doesn't have the numbers for it. Great player.
Week 1 against the Packers, Kaepernick, he had 200 and something yards.
He was the only guy him and Crabtree were the only guy who could really had the hand strength to catch Kaepernick's throws consistently. That guy threw hard. Yeah. Boldin would dominate with Trey Lance. Purdy is what Kyle Shanahan hoped Manziel would have been, even though Johnny was faster. I don't think Kyle wanted any part of Johnny Manziel at any time. At any time.
That'd be a great question to ask him tomorrow. Hey, is Purdy kind of, what you hoped Manziel would have become? He'd give you the craziest look, like, where the hell is that coming from?
And how do I answer this without offending multiple people?
Right.
Yeah, but no, I see what you mean. He kind of is built like Manziel. He's like if Manziel were good. I see what you mean by that. I totally see what you mean by that. He's the good version of Manziel.
Purdy is what happens if Manziel didn't go out and party with his friends.
He also seems kind of like what the Jets were hoping they were getting in Zach Wilson. Although I know Zach has a stronger arm, but damn, Zach, what happened? Maybe the Niners could get Zach. No.
Well, the Jets are moving him. Would you take Zach how about drive a super hard bargain? Zach and a number 1 for Trey. Take it or leave it, Salah.
Yeah. How does the NFL play out 1 through 3 AFC seeds? You take it away.
I don't know. I mean, right now, Kansas City's the 1?
Yeah.
Maybe they just remain the 1? Maybe.
I don't know what last night's game suspension does to this. I haven't thought about that. We're thinking about DeMar, not that. So I don't know.
I know, seriously, it was a huge game yesterday, but what we saw was so dramatic that I never even really gave that any thought either. Like, how are they going to do this? What are they going to do here? It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, we just saw something that was a true tragedy potentially. And
we
don't, and he's not out of the woods yet, at least not to my knowledge.
No, we haven't gotten an update. Jorge says, let's not forget Jimmy's first 5 games or Nick Foles. BP could just be the lightning in a bottle for a bit. Keep Trey Lance and let them compete, praying for DeMar. That's a legit point. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, here's the only thing I'll say on that. That is true. Jimmy got off to a hot start. And you could say the same thing about Kaepernick, right? He got off to a 5 or 6 game start that was pretty good. But, I mean, Purdy has literally done this. He took Iowa State to 4 bowl games. He had big numbers at Iowa State. I mean, Iowa State's not one of the powerhouse teams in the Big 12, if you haven't noticed. So, and then he looked good all through minicamp, and he looked good all through training camp. And it's like nobody wanted to really watch it because they were just they had decided before practice who was better.
And to be fair, people were focused
really looking at it.
People were focused on Trey. It was all about Trey. But yeah.
And then Brock was right there, believe me, making the same passes, but making them with more consistent accuracy, albeit less velocity.
I will say this. I could tell that Brock was better than Nate Sudfeld. That was clear. I knew it. All right. Sean says, this feels like a mistake. Purdy needs at least a year to know. This team is stacked. It would be dumb to commit to him and shop Trey off.
Okay, so all I'd say, Sean, is what do you need to see, and when will you be convinced?
Yeah.
Because you can play this game all the way through. You can be like, you know what? They got the Super Bowl, but man, it's only one Super Bowl, and you don't know how he's going to bounce back off of it. You know what I mean? We could play this game forever. How long can the Niners hold Trey Lance hostage from his career?
Yes.
It can't continue.
That is such a good way they're holding him hostage from his career. And again, the longer he sits, it's possible the lower his trade value goes because this is a guy who hasn't played consistently since he was 19. So there are a lot of variables here that the Niners have to consider. I understand how Sean feels. It's how I felt at first. But I keep looking at this like, man, you put him on the bench again. What are you doing to this poor guy? What are you doing to this poor guy? It's not fair already. Any team that drafted Trey should have been 100% committed to the building process. And the Niners weren't. Okay, fine. At what point do you let him go? It's hostage. It's a hostage situation. Dog day afternoon.
Unless that's why you got to communicate with him because maybe he doesn't view it as such. Maybe he feels that Shanahan is such an awesome coach and that the Niners are such an awesome organization that he absolutely just doesn't want to go anywhere and he'll let the chips fall and he's going to be a good soldier if he loses out to Brock. If that's the situation, then maybe you keep him. But even so, even in that situation, you're only really keeping him for a year because eventually he's got to play.
And maybe he feels, look, good for Brock. When I get my opportunity, I'm going to kill it too. The team's good. I'll be ready. Yeah, because, frankly, he never played with McCaffrey. He played one game with George Kittle. He won that game. He hasn't really played with the full deck of cards the way Brock Purdy has, and maybe he's thinking, I'm not going anywhere. They're going to ship me off to freaking Houston so I can fit. No, I'm staying here. I'll get my opportunity. This team is stacked. I'll show him. Maybe that's his mentality, in which case, good for the Niners. Good for the Niners. I think that was Jimmy's mentality. The Niners were trying to push him out the door. He was like, no, this team is stacked. I'm going to continue putting up numbers on this team and making money. You're not pushing me out of here. And
also, the same way everybody talks in this league about your negative traits, people talk about your good traits. So the rest of the league knows exactly what I know and what you know and what people here in San Francisco know, which is that Trey is a great kid, that Trey is a good prospect, that he's liked by the other players. He's not going to be a Zach Wilson in New York. They're going to love him in New York.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? He's a team guy. This guy's a really high character guy. So everybody knows that. So this idea that, he didn't look great in some of the preseason games. The best they can get is a 4th-round pick. You're high. You're high if you think they're getting a 4th-round pick. They're getting far more than that if they decide to trade him.
Flavor Reborn Restoration says CMC is a G. Cool, calculated, big ups, TMs, and rarely celebrates his games. Big ups teammates and rarely celebrates his gains. Niners need to put a ring on it if they like it. Yeah, I really appreciate his professionalism, McCaffrey.
He's tough,
David,
too.
Tough. David says if the Niners win with Brock, would they consider trading Brock? He'll net much more and will give Kyle Shanahan the time needed to properly develop Trey.
They'll get offers, I'm sure.
It would be funny. What do you think if he wins the Super Bowl? What is his trade value?
A lot. 23-year-old Super Bowl winning quarterback who makes no money on a rookie deal.
But if you have a quarterback who runs the offense the way you want it run and wins a Super Bowl, you don't trade that guy.
Right.
You don't bench that guy.
Shanahan's not trading Brock.
I don't think so. Dustin the Gale says trading Trey before next season feels like when we paid Jimmy after 6 games.
You're right. But Trey has a say in this. So,
it's different, though, because you got Brock, unless you don't got Brock. Larry is the man. He told us about Purdy. I agree. Finesse the kid. It's smart. You want to be the team that trades away Steve Young. Not saying Trey is that, but come on. Brock is fool's gold, man. Kyle will trade Brock back to Miami. Here's the thing, though. If you have young Montana and young Steve, you got to trade young Steve. It's just the way it is. If they're the same age. I'm just saying. So, but I don't know. We don't know if that's the case right now.
I know. It's wild, though, isn't it?
It is wild. It's great. John says Brock going to rock with his chicken out and win the ship. I think that's what he meant. Chicken. Justin says if Brock plays like last week, does he beat Buffalo?
It's a good question. Buffalo doesn't have Josh Jacobs or Devontae.
I don't think it was his best game. I think he's played better.
No, it wasn't his best game.
It wasn't his best game.
But guys, wait a second. Before we start condemning this guy,
he
threw some dimes.
He did.
He threw dimes. First of all, it seemed like the Niners went months before Jimmy would throw touchdown passes into the end zone. We're seeing it with regularity now.
True. That's a good point. Jimmy would just throw in front of the end. Hey, knife your way in there. What do you mean? Ryan Blocker says bowl game was rough. Not to make this about UCLA, but Charbonnet could be a great addition to the backfield. Charbonnet. So Charbonnet didn't play in the game, right? And so DTR, he just threw 3 picks. Yeah, that was bad. And then he left the game. He was hurt. I don't know. But yeah, Charbonnet's really good.
Though. He's 220 pounds.
Yeah. Nicolo Credit says, one thing I noticed, Purdy never looked scared in the pocket. I remember seeing Jimmy visibly shaking in big games. Brock, the Rock, won't crack. Yeah, he does seem very confident. I like his poise in the pocket. I need to see him adjust to the NFL adjusting. That is true. That's
fair. That's fair.
That is true. It's a good point. Sean, it's a really interesting discussion, and I think there's good points on both sides, and we're going to probably be having this discussion for the next at least 2 months. So
yeah, hopefully maybe we'll do it in Arizona the week, maybe Glendale in February.
Sean says, I saw a tweet from a national reporter that Brock throws all over the field except deep right. Any thoughts as to why? I'm surprised he's going cross field more than deep right. I've seen that passing chart. it's interesting. It looks like a small sample size, but I also noticed that at the end of the game, he was nailing Ayuk on the left, slants to the left. He's really good at throwing to the left. What do you think is up with this right thing?
Well, I think it's interesting. One of the things, a major component of every NFL offense is the kind of, with a right-handed quarterback, is the roll right, throw back. And so when you're throwing back to the middle of the field or the other side of the field. You're not throwing. It's the roll. You're kind of moving the defense and you're throwing back. And so you make the defense flows with you to your throw hand side. And then as they're flowing to you, you find somebody going the other way, and it's a big play. So I think you see a lot more roll right, throwback with a right-handed quarterback, which would mean he wouldn't throw it deep on the right side of the field. That's the only thing I can say that I feel like makes any sense of that. It also could be just the first time I read that stat or saw the graphic, I thought, you know what, kind of a small sample size. Let's see 6, 7, 8 games before we really say he can't make a certain throw.
Well, one thing I've noticed with the rollouts with Purdy is Shanahan makes him roll left a lot. For a few reasons. One, you're expecting the right-handed quarterback to roll right. It's an easier throw. So I think he feels like it's catching defenses off guard. Purdy can do it, and it gets you away from McGlinchey. No offense, but you don't want to be that close to Mike McGlinchey. So it seems like if your quarterback can throw on the move, running left, you want him doing that. Maybe that's why he's got so many throws to the left.
Well, the only thing about that is he's really got to have enough time to set his feet. Otherwise, it's like that's almost an impossible throw. But that's what I'm saying. That what you just described there, Grant, was exactly the play that scored the touchdown to Kittle. He did a quick pivot to his left and then flipped his hips, set his feet, and just layered a perfect dime, with great trajectory right over the linebacker.
Right.
And but still low enough for Kittle. Kittle didn't even have to jump for it. I mean, it was a dime.
But the deep throw to Kittle, it was a roll left, throw back right, underthrown. And then the one to Jennings at the goal line, it was a fade on the right, a little underthrown. So I don't know, maybe there is something to this. It's interesting, though, because I'm always accustomed to right-handed quarterbacks throwing better to the right than to the left. It's harder to throw to the left. You don't see it as well. You got to open your hips. Purdy's really good at it. Jimmy was really good at it. I don't actually know which Trey does better.
The one thing it is interesting about Trey being 6'4" or whatever, 6'3", 225, Purdy being the undersized guy. I looked up the hand size. Purdy goes 9.5 on the hands, and I think Trey's like 9.8 or 7.
That's surprising.
7.5 or was it 9.5 versus 9.5 versus 9.25. So
yeah, Brock Purdy, he walks up to the podium, and I'm like, man, this dude is my size. I could be an NFL quarterback, but then he's got really big hands, and I'm like, why can't I have 9.5-inch hands? That's amazing. Good for Brock. Ben Poole says 20 years of swinging and missing on quarterbacks. I couldn't handle it if they traded Trey Lance and he turns into Josh Allen 2.0. Rodgers loved Young, sat for years.
Okay. I hear you, but it's up to Trey too, right?
I hear you. Yep. That is another factor. What Trey wants to do.
You can't have
Poppy.
You can't be angry in the corner of the locker room. That's not going to be a good situation.
And again, that doesn't seem like his personality.
It doesn't seem like him.
At the same time, I don't know.
He's got to play.
It just seems wrong. It just seems wrong to ask him to even do it. Wave 9 Mystic says losing in the first round of the playoffs gives Kyle his out to start trade next year. I was on my third stringer type of out. You know what I'm saying, Grant? Absolutely. If they lose in the first round and Brock doesn't play great, the Niners, I have no idea what they're going to do. They could do whatever they want at that point. They could do whatever they want. Yo, Krueger, where do you get that sick flag? Says Papi Chulo.
Oh yeah, I'm doing the 49er show on TalkSport, the pre and post game show on TalkSport, and so now I've got a little bit of a UK following, and one of the UK fan groups sent me that flag, and then I got another one here that's pretty cool too. See if I can hold this one up. This is pretty cool. UK 49er flags, kind of cool. Big 49er. So I can hang those in the background from time to time.
Jaws says at least wait until the season is over to praise BP13. To a certain extent, I know what you mean. This team's legacy is going to be built in the playoffs. Niners Daddy says it's going to suck to trade Trey and him be elite. That would really suck. They better be sure about what they're doing. Saul Goodman says, LOL, Niner fans have been starved of a great quarterback for so long. We're obsessed with this story this season, and nobody knows what they want.
That makes me laugh, but it kind of is true.
They have elite quarterback play staring them in the face right now, and Niner fans are like, well, what do we do? Is this it? Like, right now, this is it.
It feels good, though. I mean, when Brock drops back to pass, you got to admit it. You're thinking what I'm thinking, which is good things are probably going to come next. Where Jimmy...
At no point did I think the Niners were going to lose to the Raiders. At no point did I think they were going to lose to the Raiders.
And
Never.
Also, Jimmy... we can get more into the Raider game. I mean, the defense struggled against Stidham. Devontae's a star. Jacobs is a star. Waller's a star. The Raiders are, McDaniels, if it wasn't on his first year, he should be canned. You got some of the greatest talent. You got Crosby and Chandler Jones and those offensive weapons, and your double-digit losses. I mean, the Raiders are pathetic coached.
Well, I just want to say real quick, I feel like there's some carryover between the Niners and the Raiders, between Shanahan and McDaniels, and between Jimmy and Carr. All of a sudden, you take Carr off that team, and they look good on offense. Jared's, all of a sudden, I'm thinking, Stidham look like they're Purdy. Now they have to seriously take Jarrett Stidham seriously. That guy looked good. He can move too. He's got a big arm.
He's got a big arm, and he's not a mover like Purdy, but he's a fast runner. Yeah. And I'll tell you what I liked is that he's confident. He knows the offense because he's been in New England's offense, and so he knows this offense better than anybody, and it looks like it.
Lucas says, I love Brock as much as the next guy, but I don't see this experiment working out as soon as next year. Doubt defenses will take long to figure him out, just like Jimmy Garoppolo. Excited for a competition next year. Here's the thing, though. Figuring him out. Dude, he has so much talent around him. It's like figuring him out means shutting down George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Jawan Jennings on the same play. Like, he doesn't have to be the greatest quarterback ever. He has so many good options. It's almost like he can't miss. That's the way I look at it.
And what's to figure out? I mean, would you be saying, all you got to say is this. Would you be saying that if he were doing exactly the same thing, but he was 6'4"? Probably
good
not.
Question. Good question. Flavor Reborn says BP had many teachable moments in LV. What would be your guys' primary talking points?
You see, I probably made a few notes to myself here.
My primary talking points for him in this game. I guess it would be to set your feet on the deep throws and let it rip, and don't just try to, hit the guy. Try to hit him in stride. Don't make him slow down. That's the Tua thing, where your guys are like stopping and waiting for your deep balls. Like, you got to get it out there. I think you have the arm strength to do it. That would be one thing.
I mean, the way the game was interesting from the standpoint of he completed 70% in the first half, but for only 38 yards.
That's right.
And then he threw for 250 yards in the second half.
Yeah.
I guess I would ask him a little bit about why he felt like the passing yards were so down in that first half. And also I would just emphasize to him that, this was the aberration. You have the number one defense in pro football. Take care of the ball. I don't think Green Bay or any of these lesser light teams in the playoffs in the NFC can take the Niners down if Brock takes care of the football. That simple thing. I think that needs to be the priority.
Also, don't fall in love with McCaffrey. He's always there for you. You can always go to Christian McCaffrey, great player. Don't fall in love with him because good things happen when you go to Ayuk. Good things happen when you go to Jennings. Good things happen when you go to Ray. You can't let those guys go a quarter, a half without getting the ball. They got to be involved too, because when you are the true point guard out there and you're spreading the ball around, defenses won't know who to take away. They're going to be focused on Kittle, Deebo, Ayuk, or whoever, and you're going to have one-on-one matchups. Don't force it. I felt like he forced it a little bit in this game. Kittle at the goal line, a couple examples. So he should have wide open. He should not wide open guys, but good one-on-one matchups he can throw to consistently.
Take care of the ball. I would say take care of the football in the middle of the field, because you just bank that there's going to be some zones and they're going to try to trick you, and they're going to try to drop guys, that you're not looking at. So I mean, be aggressive, but take care of the football in the middle of the field, especially.
Marky Mark says rumors Jim Harbaugh to the Broncos. It'll be funny to see if Wilson can handle his personality.
See if he goes there.
I wouldn't want to coach Russell Wilson right now. Devontae Adams is so good that he completes catches without catching the ball. NYC got that call wrong.
Probably, but that's another screwed up NFL thing where we're at the discretion of the camera angles and the timing. Like we had the right angle, but the camera was too high. By the time it got down, you couldn't tell if you couldn't tell. What I mean? It was like I felt like we just didn't have the right camera angle at the right time.
F you, Joe Boo. I do it myself. I love you, man. But dude, it's freaking Tuesday. The game was 2 days ago. The Niners won. What are we doing, man? Yes, the refs are no good in the NFL. They're not full-time employees. They should be. It should be better. But can we – I hate doing the ref conversation. I don't do ref quality control. That is not my job. It could be your job, but I'm Niners quality control. I'm sorry.
But thanks for the $5, right?
I feel – F you, Jobo. You're a good guy. I like you. But I can't join that conversation. I'm just sitting out. Bay Area – hey, Grant, do you still think the Niners made a mistake in trading for CMC and trading Jets? Yes! Huge mistake, and it's going to cost them their entire season. Jeez. Yeah, okay.
Man,
all right, I was wrong.
People got receipts. I mean, people are coming at you.
Can I just say before we move on that my problem was, one, the Niners can't keep their guys healthy. Let's see them keep Christian McCaffrey healthy for a couple more years. But so far, so good. He's the one running back who stays healthy on this team. Amazing. The other thing was I felt that even he wouldn't bring Jimmy Garoppolo a Lombardi trophy. And I still feel that I was right about that. But you know what? We'll never know because it's Brock time. It's Brock time. Had I known that the Niners had freaking Kurt Warner on the bench, I'd say, yeah, bring in all the great players. Absolutely.
One media guy I did an interview with the day before the trade deadline on the field. And I said, are the Niners going to trade for Christian McCaffrey? And he goes, no. And I go, why not? And he goes, because they don't need him. I'm like, all right.
That's how I felt.
That's it.
Jason Singleton says, do we ignore Purdy's weak arm and just ride with it?
Ignore 32 points a game. How about that?
Yeah, I like that. Dustin says, if talent is the issue, let the compete and let the best quarterback win. Both will do great behind this offense. Kyle's job to work with both.
Once again, I mean, it's not that it's not good for the Niners. It's good for the Niners. It costs nothing, and you got two real good options there, and they're both great kids. It just, is it good for Trey?
LA Blue 9049 says, do you think Hufanga has become our Jimmy Garoppolo on defense where he seems to make the same mistake every week? Is he asleep during film study? No. What do you think's going on with Hufanga?
Well, I thought on the first touchdown, he got kind of burned with like kind of an eye discipline mistake. And I think ultimately Hufanga was a 5th round pick because he's a little bit of a coverage liability down the field. He's got great desire. He knows the game plan, but I think he's leaning forward. I think he's awesome in the box, interrupting the mesh point against the run. But I think if you have a really good quarterback that's has a good rhythm with his receiver, Hufanga's not the world's greatest coverage player in the deep quadrants of the field. So I hope that's his weakness. He knows it. Rodgers tested him down the middle last year in the playoff game. He stood up and made that play. He seems like the kind of player that would rise to the occasion. So I don't want to judge him, but there's been an awful lot of completions in his area. And now some people don't think that it's really him. Gibson, I don't think is a great coverage player. He's a productive interceptor, but I think Hufanga and Gibson can be picked on.
Pat Will says, Grant, love your content. Please more shows with Larry the Legend. By far the best guest you have along with your dad. Also, can you please remove the jarring intro and outro audio video portion of your clips? No. No. Just to piss you off. Wave 9 Mystic says, Packers are built like KC, but a better secondary. I've been telling you, Grant, the past 2 weeks. Aaron is due against us. Great running game, too. Yeah, and the Niners knocked the Packers were the 1 seed last year, and they won no playoff games. They had a bye week, and they hosted the Niners and lost, so there would be some revenge. Aaron won Super Bowl as a wild card, just saying. Wow, Wave 9 Mystic is calling a shot here. He could be right. Keith Murphy says, I tell my friends that cheer for Green Bay that I think it favored us to play them in cold weather. I think SF is built more like a cold weather team. GB would be dangerous in the Bay. Well,
The
Rodgers
Niners are going to be dangerous too on a fast surface because they're a pretty fast team.
They are. And just if you got to take shots deep to beat the Niners, Rodgers is going to take shots for sure. EZO says both quarterbacks have no leverage to demand a trade. Keep them. There's years in their contract. Also, keep drafting and developing D linemen on the cheap and sign proven corners like Ward moving forward. Yeah, Niner fans don't want to trade Trey Lance. Think about it though, guys. If you keep him on the bench for a third year, what are you doing to him? Is that making him better or worse? Is this the right back? If Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback, what are you keeping Trey for? Is he the right backup?
It's good for us. It's just not good for him. And you know what? People will note, and what you have to avoid, this is why communication is the ultimate here. You just got to keep the dialogue going because he might want to be here. And if he wants to be here, then he's not going to complain. But what you don't want is Brock to win the job and have it be like September 2nd and Trey like makes a demand to be traded at the beginning of the year. And you got a month and a half to the trade deadline and it's got this huge distraction and you're going to trade him for a reduced cost. I mean, you don't want to don't get played that way. Communicate with him, figure out what he wants. And if it's best for him to leave, then see what kind of offers you get.
Toby says, over-under of ums from Brock in the postgame presser. I've noticed that Brock answers every question the same way. You ask him a question, he goes, yeah, I like that. Because he wants to like give you like a pause. Yeah, it's a fair question. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah. So I like that. He's got like a can-do attitude with every question. I like it.
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah.